Hello and hi, welcome to Yedidia Shofet.net, and welcome to Pesach Part 3 in our special edition of lectures and things to say by the table. So today, we slowly are moving out from the preparations of Pesach into the actual Seder night. The Seder night is where we come home from Bet Knesset, we come home from synagogue, we're around the table, after we made all of our meetings, we said hi to everyone, we're excited to see you after 50 years, and all these things, and we sit around the table. On the table, there's one specific item, the item where a lot of people like to bring us gifts, where they can range from $5 to $500, is a Seder plate. And this Seder plate, all the symbols of the night is plopped in its own little portion on this Seder plate. For instance, the shank bone, the egg, the charoset, the maror, the bitter herbs, and all these things. So I wanted to share with you a very interesting idea. Something which is, it's a story, but it has a great message that you can share that night. So let's begin. There was one time a fellow, this guy, he was a rich guy, and he wanted to find a suitable young Talmudic scholar who was wise in Torah and understanding, as well as wise in good and great morals and virtues. Okay? So he was looking around and he found a great guy, and he told him, listen, you marry my daughter. She's a great girl. I have a dowry for you, 300 gold coins. And this guy, he really didn't have much. And he was very excited. He's like, wow, that means I'll be able to start off my life and everything great. So he marries her, and slowly comes the time of Pesach. And he's been waiting for his dowry for a while. And he said, at least by Pesach, he's going to pay me my dowry. So he's like, you know what? Pesach is coming. Let me at least spend a couple of dollars on fruits, vegetables, whatever it is, and some nice things for my wife. And that way, I'll have money to back it up with my father-in-law. Okay. So he buys stuff for Pesach, and he's all excited. He's going to the holidays. However, he's waiting and nothing. Finally, a few days before, an envelope comes from his father-in-law. So he's like, okay, no gold coins in here, but, maybe he wrote me a banknote. Opens it up. It said, my dear son-in-law, you are such a blessing to the family. I love you very much. That blessing is so huge; it makes me smile every morning. And he basically finishes off the whole letter to say happy holidays, and I give you my own blessings. I'm only prosperity and only goodness and only wealth should happen in your life. And then he ends up. So the son-in-law is like, what is he doing? I can't cash this piece of paper. So the son-in-law goes to the father-in-law and he says, hi, how are you? How's everything? Chag Sameach. I just, I came today because you let me know that I should collect the dowry by today. You gave me a time period and you said I should come today, so I came. Is everything okay? So he's like, oh, I sent you my dowry. He's like, what are you talking about? Did you not see the letter? He's like, I did see the letter. But so the father-in-law tells the son-in-law, so I thought you're a scholar. You should understand the letter. He's like, please enlighten me. I don't understand what you're saying. He says, look, it says in the whole letter that through prosperity, through blessings, I grant you, and ultimately you'll become wealthy, you'll have blessings, and you'll have a great dowry. So the son-in-law says, okay, but where is the dowry? So he says, oh, you don't understand? So let me explain it to you. Every day, we know that we read at the end of the tefillah, at the end of the prayers, we read about the sacrifices. And the reason why we read about them is because since we're not able to perform them, so we're able to read them. So the fact is that we read about these sacrifices, and it's as if that we perform them. So that way, I wrote you a letter. The letter, it talks all about my blessings and dowry onto you. So the fact is that since I wrote about it, I spoke about it, and you recited it, it's as if that I gave it to you. So the son-in-law doesn't know to laugh. He doesn't know to cry. He's thinking, oh my God, what type of father-in-law do I have over here? So he tells him, let me tell you something. Let me ask you actually something. Look at the Seder plate. Look at the Seder plate. He's looking at the Seder plate. What do you have on the Seder plate? You have the eggs, you have the shank bone, you have the maror, the bitter herbs. Why do we have these things on the Seder plate? So we have the things on the Seder plate because why? Because the things on the Seder plate is supposed to be a symbol, correct? So why do we have the maror, the bitter herbs? Because the bitter herbs, it reminds you of the night. And through it, you're able to live the mitzvah. Why do we have the betzah and why do we have the shank bone? Why do we have the eggs and why do we have the shank bone, that piece of lamb, whatever it is, on the Seder plate? So he tells him, why we have the shank bone and the egg? Because that night we are supposed to remind ourselves, correct? He says, yeah. So he tells him, no. If that's the case, that we're supposed to remind ourselves, why don't we have gold coins, silver coins all over the Seder plate? If the whole point was to remind ourselves of that night, there was a lot of gold and silver that we got that day when we came out of Egypt. So we should also put gold coins and silver coins all over the Seder plate. Why don't we do that? So the father-in-law looks at him and says, I don't know. Good question. Why don't we do that? So he says something very beautiful. He says, do you know why we put the shank bone and the egg on there? Because we can only remember these things through this. We can only remember these korbanot, these sacrifices, through our actions on the Seder plate. Let me explain to you. You know why when we read all of those korbanot, the sacrifices, we know why it's as if that when we read it, it's as if that we do it? Because the only time that applies, when it's between us and God. And when it's between us and God, and we want to do the mitzvah, but we physically can't. There's no Beit HaMikdash over here. There's no Beit HaMikdash. There's no temple. We can't bring any sacrifices. Over there, that's when we can recite it in order to actually do the sacrifices. We can read about it. But let's say tefillin. Tefillin, the black boxes that we put on our arms every morning. Let me ask you a question. Are we able to do it? Yes, we are able to do it. So what? I should read about it? No. No one in the right mind would think like that. Rather, we put it on, we do the tefillin because we have an ability to do it. The only time when you talk about something and it's as if that you did it is when we want to do a mitzvah and that we're not physically able to do the mitzvah. That's when it works, between us and God. But when it comes out between everyone else, when it comes out between me and you, between him and his neighbor, there's no such thing as reciting it as if that it's done. It has to be in action, not just in words. That's exactly why on the Seder night we don't just throw coins to say to have remembrances. By the betzah, by the egg, and by the shank bone, you know why we have these things? It's not just to remember. It's the fact that we're not able to do these mitzvot anymore. We're not able to do the mitzvah of the korban chagiga, the sacrifice of the chagiga, the sacrifice of the holidays, or the sacrifice of Pesach. We're not able to do that. We could only recite and talk about it. That's why it's on this Seder plate. That's why it's on this Seder plate. That's why we remind ourselves of the symbols. Not just the fact to remind us, but the fact that we can't do these mitzvot anymore. We can't do these great deeds. So the same thing, it applies to us. The son was telling his father-in-law that there's certain mitzvot, certain deeds that we want to do, but we can't do them. But when you can do it, you have to do it. You're supposed to do it, especially when it's between each other. And the father-in-law was very ashamed. He puts his head down. Now, what does this story have a morale to us? So it explains, there's a certain part at tefillah, and this tefillah says, I have desire to do your will, my God, and your Torah that is inside of me. Many people come over and say, listen, I have a good heart, it's all about lev, it's all in the heart. But when you look in the Torah, it says, it's not just in your heart, it's about your actions, about what you do. You could have the best heart in the world, but if you don't do anything, what does that say about your heart? What does that really talk about your heart? You know, sometimes they say in Farsi, Dena misuzeh. My heart burns for someone. However, let me ask you something. Have you ever shared any compassion with the person? So when you say Dena misuzeh, that my heart burns for that person, my heart burns for that, it doesn't burn for him, it burns for yourself, the fact that you're not able to stand that. Not the fact that you can't stand it for him. That is the idea of Pesach tonight. The idea of Pesach tonight is that words are very cheap. And actions are where it truly is. But where actions cannot work, at least you should use your words. So tonight at Pesach, think for a moment and say, what can I do? What can I accomplish? What can I actually bring to everyone at the table? What can I bring in my own life? Can I do an action? So let me do it. Let me actually perform it. If I'm not able to perform the action, it's impossible for me to do, at least let me share my words. At least let me share some words of encouragement, inspiration, or words of kindness, compassion, that can actually almost turn out the same effect as in action. So Bezrat Hashem, may all these words and actions and ideas may it sink in. Please remember the story of the father-in-law, the son-in-law, how talk is very cheap and that actions must be completed, because those actions are the true result of what a heart really entails. Have a good day.